Sound check! Mula sa Bayang Pilipino, I am John DBS, and today we're doing a commentary for Tales of Rise Beyond the Dawn. We're doing this with bonus. This is the sequel for the main game Tales of Rise, which won RPG of the Year in 2021, and Beyond the Dawn is actually the sequel. And the speedrun of this game is short for an RPG run, which can be run in about 90 minutes, but I think we can commit to an estimate of about 1 hour and 25 or 1 hour and 26 with some few minutes difference. Yeah, few minutes difference. So, let's go to the video. So, we're playing with bonus, as I have mentioned before, because this DLC relies on the game data from the main game, and with bonus actually offers you a faster speedrun. Undeniably, it offers a faster speedrun, and the lore for this game is actually we encounter a new character in the form of Nazamil, which is essentially one of the Lord's daughter. And with reference to the main game is actually the Lord before Volran, if you're familiar with the lore of the main game. The Lord before Volran took over Ganath Harrows. So yeah, but that is if you're familiar with the main game. But for those first time seeing this game, this is essentially a Tales game which thinks really differently. So the first thing we did is actually setting up arts, setting up tactics, and the tactics in this game is really different from your past Tales games, where this is essentially a one for all for one attack or strategy. So one strategy applies to all members in the party. So this is the reason why this is a Tales game where it has a really strong parallel to a Dark Souls speedrun. In a Dark Souls speedrun, you normally have only one character and then you pretty much dodge, roll, dodge, and then attack. This game is a strong parallel. Has a strong parallel. And one of the things we did early on is to activate the Reckless Abandon. So you have seen a hammer, or rather a mallet. You have seen a mallet before. That means we are enabling the Reckless Abandon, which essentially doubles the damage between both the player and the enemy. So you will see a couple of times where we will die on one hit, simply because the enemies hit hard and at the same time we hit hard. It's just a level of playing field. So what essentially this DLC is, for the whole big picture, is there are a lot of walking segments in this game. So if you want to see a submission which is significantly shorter, I invite you to look over the boss rush version of this game. So again, for those familiar with the main game, this is essentially checking out the places we've been through in the main game. So Nies is our very first venue. But again, for those first time seeing this game that does not ever see the main game itself, so Tales games feature a couple of skits, feature a couple of mandatory cutscenes, mandatory dialogues. And basically the whole picture is, oh, you're the main character of this story, you're the blazing sword, you're the one who saved this this nation. You're the one who saved this town. But unfortunately, we have more errands with yeah, we have more errands for you. So that's essentially this DLC is. We have more errands for you. So one of the main things we need to do in this run is to gather gems, just as what we're doing right now. The reason is simply because is we need to employ more equipments. We need to employ more equipments, more characteristics in our equipment. So this is a very common trope in JRPGs, especially if you're trying to maximize damage. You attach, you stack, and you attack. You attach, stack, and attack. So yeah, for those who are not aware, Nazamil is one of the main characters in this DLC, but unfortunately it's not playable. The only way you can play Nazamil is actually, I think in a mobile game called Tales of Race. That is the only thing that you can actually do to access and play Nazamil as a main character. And also Nazamil later on happens to be the major antagonist also in this DLC. One of the cooking mechanics in Tales games is one of the mechanics for a Tales game is actually cooking, in which basically you have an overall effect out both outside and inside battle. Overall effect, which lasts a couple of minutes, let's say 15 to 30 minutes, depending on the character making. Basically, what we did is, if I've seen it correctly, it's a basic meal which buffs some stats. That's basically what happens. So we did the merchant sequence and craft the main weapon we will use throughout the run. That is basically our weapon for the whole run. And the magic emblem, so that we increase Alphen's elemental attack, because that is the most essential thing towards higher damage percentage or higher DPS. So we gather another set of gems. So yeah, as you might have seen by now, the DLC offers you a lot early on the game. You can actually sell some items, but because we're doing this with bonus, we have tons of cash from the beginning. In a way, this is also parallel to Tales of Zestiria DLC, the Alicia story. This is one of the main dungeons. There are 3 main dungeons in this game, which are all mausoleums. The last dungeon being the biggest mausoleum of all, of course, because it's the final dungeon. So, basically what happens here is that you have tons of mazes in this dungeon. You have a lot of high-level enemies, and that's it. That's your main thing. That's your main thing. So we're trying so the challenge also in these dungeons is to actually avoid as many enemies as you can. Avoid as many enemies as you can. And actually we are able to succeed in avoiding a lot of enemies. These are relatively easy to manage because they have some buffer before they actually hit and
五属性しか持たない
Hunt.
我々はいずれ旧世代
hunt for the main character.
知れんな。
こんな風にみんなでいると昔に戻ったよ。
So more walking segments as usual because this
そんな
apparently
年でもないでしょ。
the devs wanted the dungeon to be way longer.
昔が
But in the meantime, while we have long walking segments, we are able to gather a lot of gems. These gems are really important because one of the main mechanics in enhancing equipment is to gather tons of gems. And we're organizing our party. So Alphen, the white-haired boy, Xian, the pink-haired girl, Rinwell, the mage, the black-haired girl, Doalim, the red-haired boy. Basically, these are your most important members in your party. And their main role is actually Alphen does all the damage. Xion and Dohalim are basically healers. And Rinwell is your main support buff. And what we're doing right now is actually we're doing the skill panel for all of the party members. So Alphen has access already to Incineration Wave. That is the most OP fire art in this game. And then Flaming Edge Burst, which basically buffs and increase our attack power, consuming way more HP, and then increase near death attack. So you might have seen by now. This is essentially a Dark Souls speedrun because in Dark Souls 1, you essentially lower your health intentionally so that you can buff your attack by a lot. And that's basically what happens in this game. Unfortunately, we died here. But that's not the biggest problem for now. And then for the rest of the party members, you enhance their BG or blast boost gauge. For Rinwell, you unlock sharpness, in which we will use a lot. Actually, we will use for almost all of the fights to buff our attack and elemental attack. And that's it. And then Xion and Doalim are healers, so that's the rest of the story. So one of the main themes in this DLC is you have Horde mobs. Mobs that keep on coming, but these are manageable, especially if you have the OP skills, can be defeated in about 1 minute. But the difficult thing about Horde mobs is, depending on how well you execute it, it could turn into a worst case scenario where you might have a time somewhere 140 to 2 minutes. That's your worst case scenario. That essentially means you have a really slow fight. You die a lot. That's it. So basically at this point, the skill panel is essentially complete for almost all of the members except Alphen because, well, Alphen needs a lot of skills to be really OP, to have a really reliable damage. That's your only... And Alphen is only your biggest contributor of damage to all of the enemies. So one of the key things we have to do here, because again we want to unlock a lot of skills for Alphen, unlock a lot of things in the skill panel, is to fight these Keyami Oozes. And the reason why we do consume happy bottles is that we want to increase our SP obtained after the battle. And yeah, we need to stun via break boost. We need to stun via the break boost so that we can obtain more SP as well. The SP obtained in Tales of Arise is essentially how well you defeat the enemies, especially how much you stun the enemies. So look at that, about 2-5. That's a lot. So we unlock Flaming Edge Charge and Flaming Edge Burst and so on and so forth. Even the down damage. Again, the Flaming Edge Burst Flaming Edge Charge rather, fastens depletion of HP. So that is about 2 to 3 seconds save for every use of it.
ナザミルがいるといいのだが。
ナザミル無事でいてくれよ。
So that we don't consume so much time in using flaming charges, in flaming strikes rather, flaming strikes. So boss fights in this game, especially for a few, are quite a joke. Look at that damage, it's about 15,000. Oh no, I died again. So there's nothing too fancy about this fight. You just buff with Rinwell, heal with Shion, heal with Dohalim. You know how it goes. All you need to do, just keep on using incineration waves. Because we have a really good access to these skills. And especially the damage that you see, you already deplete more than 1/4 of the health. That's it. That's your fight. That's your fight. That's a. So you might ask, where are the little jokes, or I should say, where are the tough fights? The tough fights will come by in the closer to the first hour in this whole run. And yes, as I have mentioned before, there are a lot of walking segments in this game. We will see an actual fight before the first hour. Before the first hour. So we're in the 16-minute mark. We're just mainly doing a lot of walking segments. We're just setting up the tone for the story actually. So the story is essentially, oh, Nazamil is connected to the mausoleums. That's it. Nazamil is actually connected to the mausoleums. So that's it. And what we're doing now is, okay, we have explored the dungeon. There are more cities to explore. So Vicint is one of the main cities in Tales of in the original game. This is the hometown also of our main character, the red-haired guy Dohalim, the monk. Closest. Actually, Dohalim is one of the boss fights we actually encounter in the main game. Actually, it's the Berserk Dohalim that we actually fight, not the I guess tame Dohalim. And also, this is where we encountered Kisara as well, in this city, Vicint.
Nazamil, この町のことは少しは分かったか？
レナとダナが本当に仲良くしてるのは分かった。どうしてできるのかはまだよく分からない。
So yeah, for the first 15 minutes of this fight, there will be a lot of walking segments. There will be a lot of dialogues. It's just essentially saying, oh, we have a room for Nazamil. We'll take care of it. We'll take care of Nazamil as well. So as you have seen in the splits, the very next boss fight is like 5 minutes later, or rather 5, 6, 7 minutes later, and yeah, it's just a lot of walking segments. So yeah, let's talk about more Tales of Arise while we are doing a lot of walking segments. Tales of Arise, again, as I mentioned, won RPG of the Year in 2021. And this particular game offers a really different speed run compared to other Tales games. You might have seen other Tales games speed runs. Let's say, for example, if we're talking about GDQ Hotfix, there was a run by Transkina with Tales of Exilio 1, Judy's Side, and Lurking SR's Tales of Berseria run for the 5-year anniversary of Tales of Berseria. They really work. If you're going to compare this speed run compared to the past Hotfix runs, and even RPG Limit Break, there are a lot of Tales runs in RPG Limit Break actually. Tales of Exilia Co-op, Tales of Symphonia, Tales of Fantasia, Tales of Zestiria, Tales of Berseria, those are all run in the RPG Limit Break. Those games really think differently because in a wider sense, we actually, before Tales of Arise, those games I have mentioned before utilizes all party members for offense. When I say all party members, it's everyone. Everyone has a role, not just merely support or whatsoever. They all have a particular part in offense. This game is really, really different because you have an one for all for one tactics mechanic. Basically, what happens is you don't want, if you play this casually, because of the one for all for one thing, it's very prone for party members to die, especially if you use them for offense. So, what you want to do is essentially, you really have to set tactics, not doing everything for all of the party members. For all of the party members. So, you don't want AI to actually ruin your groove. That is essentially why we set tactics to, we let them idle. All of the members are idle, except Alphen, of course. And of course, except when they're doing buffs. And you have seen also in the fights, we actively call Rainwell for sharpness, actively call Shion for heal, actively call Doalim for first aid for Shion, and Doalim for heal art. It's simply because for some reason you cannot even trust the game's AI mechanic where if Alphen is below 50%, Dohalim and Shion will automatically heal. It's not that trustworthy because they still have some degree of delay before they actually execute the command. So this is one of the reasons why I actually actively call my party members to do things. So what we're doing here is we're enhancing the magic emblem because we happen to obtain a magic emblem which has fire damage plus 15%, and that characteristic is crucial towards the rest of the run because we want to stack fire damages or even elemental attacks. Yeah, elemental attacks would also help. So as usual, more gem gathering, more item gathering. And yeah, we obtained a happy bottle on the way. So that on the very next Keyami Ooze fight, we were able to use another set of 2 happy bottles to maximize SP gain. So the very next boss is a Venoflage. It's not that hard of a boss fight again. It's another joke fight just like the Valkyrie Nimus fight or Nimus Pandemonium. It's a big joke because you can deal a lot of damage with the Venoflage. Deal a lot of damage. So the tactic here is actually, well, not really a tactic at all, but you want, before getting the Venoflage all the way to 50%, you want a full heal, almost to full health, so that you can damage with Incineration Wave all the way close to death, and then one last Incineration Wave will actually knock out the Venoflage. So that's one way to do it. If you let the Venoflage use the go to Berserk phase, or even trigger the Berserk art, you might waste 10 to 15 seconds. Yeah, 10 to 15 seconds. Especially if you're not able to deplete all the way to less than 25%. So it's another couple of seconds wasted. So basically this is the mystery. This is the mystery behind the footprints and a very strange creature watching the ranch. So that's the mystery. Not that all interesting for a lore, but okay, we'll take it. So we bought wheats and milk and life bottles, of course, so that we can make shortcake. This shortcake will last about, I think, 15 to 30 minutes game time, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe the times we've actually used the party. And you'll be surprised at how long the cooking, how long the consumption takes, or how long the effects last. Because the shortcake essentially increases our elemental attack. That's large, so that means it's about 12%, yeah, 12%. So that's about 12% increase in elemental attack, and that's a lot actually. That's a lot. So this is the very next Horde Mob Fight. This is more annoying than the first one because, as you have seen here, you have a lot of flying foes, wolves. Flying foes and wolves. The flying foes can summon whirlwind, and that's mildly annoying. The wolves are so fast that if you don't time it well, actually a slight miss in timing will actually kill Alpha. Simply because, again, we are in a Reckless Abandon artifact. We use the Reckless Abandon, and all enemies hit hard. So just as a simple touch from wolves will kill Alpha, actually. Especially if you keep on using flaming strikes, flaming arts. So this is the actual Horde fight. The earlier fight is just 4 enemies, 2 flying, 2 wolves. This time we have a lot. So the main this is one of the reasons why we need the Incineration Wave, because the hitbox of Incineration Wave is linear and it has wide hitbox as well, especially if the enemies are near Alpha. And you want them to be near Alpha, honestly. But it's very risky too, considering a single hit from them would actually kill Alpha. So we're doing actually good here. We're actually doing good here. Yeah, you cannot risk an Incineration Wave here, especially if the flying foe used whirlwind. Whirlpools rather, whirlpools. Yeah, this is exactly the moment why I say wolves are really annoying. Good thing Shion and Dualim were able to heal on time, because if it were not, then Alphen would die. That would consume about 5 seconds of menuing. Well, actually more than 5 seconds to do life battles, heals, and buffs all over again. So this is a particularly good fight. About 1 minute of this Horde fight, that's really good. That is really good. An average fight is like 90 seconds. But this one, 1 minute, it's extremely good. It's extremely good.
急いで駆けつけたってのにこの扱いかよ。
よせロ
今から他の町
So what happened in the lore of this story so far is that, oh, Nazamil turned out to be almost no different to Almidrea. By the way, Almidrea in the main game is the fourth lord that you actually fight, and Almidrea is the one who melted almost all of the people in Miaz. So that is what essentially what happened to what is happening to Nazamil. It's just Nazamil almost turned everyone into masked men. They lost all of their consciousness. It's just how should I say? It's just a reminder of another struggle between Danans and Renans compared to the main game. I think that's a simple way to put it. A simple way to put it. Where the Renans ruled over the Danans all over again. But this time it's in their consciousness.
ねえあそこ
In their
誰かいるよ
consciousness.
ナザミルではないようだ
とにかく行ってみよう。
Yeah, this is a minor detail. The reason why we jumped earlier is that we intentionally skip the dialogue. We essentially skip. This is dialogue skip. One of the main things. Well, it's a minor thing, but if you don't jump, you might actually consume 5, 6, 7 seconds, or even playing the dialogue, playing almost all of the dialogue.
なんだよあの親子。こっちは心
It's
配
a
してや
minor
ってるの
thing,
に。
but it can be crucial,
いかにレナとダナの
especially
対立が根深いとは
we're
ね
doing a lot of
聞く
dialogue
耳も持た
skips.
れないのはこ
こうなれば
ナザミルの気配は。ダメだ。人が多すぎ
So
て
yeah,
わ
you
か
might
んない
have noticed by now, since I have mentioned before, there are a lot of dialogues, there are a lot of loading screens.
なぜ今に
There are 2 timers that are currently
お呼び立て
implemented.
して申し訳あ
One
る
is
実
the
は
RTA, the real-time attack, the other is the in-game timer. Without loads. And yeah, there are a lot of loading scenes in this game.
相変わらずここは
So again, the overarching theme of the DLC is, oh, we visit
そもそも山田氏
almost all of the
雪解け
venues
と
in the
は
main
時
game.
間がかかるものなのだ
And this time we're visiting Sisloden. This is the cold part of Dana. And this is also the home of the hardest fight. I would still argue this is the hardest fight in the whole main game. Ganabelt. Even in the post-game, Ganabelt poses still a really considerable threat. Especially if you play in the highest difficulty, the unknown difficulty. And you really have to play by it. You really have to play by it. And who would have thought? The mystic art, what's that mystic art again? Indignation. The indignation mystic art will not appear for a main character. Rinwell doesn't have it, but instead a boss has it. The boss has it.
こんな大きな町
The boss has
人
the
もいるのに
indignation.
雪
Who
の
would have
せいもあ
thought?
るけど
Which
ここで
makes
話
it
す
really
癖が
difficult.
ない
And
んだ
by the way, that is just the second boss fight. The second boss fight. The second literally early game
相変わらず
boss
こっちが見ると
uses
目をそらすよね。
他人と目を合わせることに
indignation.
なかなか慣れ
By
ない
the way, I'm talking about the lords, okay? I'm not, you might argue with me, oh, the second boss fight is actually the Gattuso copycat or the Ice Wolf leader. No, that's not your main boss. It's just, yes, it's a required boss, but it's not your main boss.
妙に肩入れしてなかった？
なん
Yeah, Ghana belt is not difficult to fight, even post-game. I kid
や
you
り直
not.
そうとしてるみたいだし
Especially if you're not prepared. Ghana belt will give you a really hard time.
そうだな
But yeah, with the speedrun strats for Ghana belt, it's not that hard
大
to
事な
do.
ことだ
It can be hard to execute, but overall, it's not that hard to do. It's not that hard to do. It's just time consuming because Ghana belt has tons of defenses built in, especially in the first phase.
1年経っても地元で相談で
So
き
yeah.
ない。
See, even if we are, it's a lot of walking segments, we're talking a lot about the main game. Because again, there's a lot of lore that it needs to tell. Even just
こ
for
の
a short
寒さ
run
で街の外で嫌われ
DLC.
たら
No?
命に関わるわね
ああ無事だといいんだが
訳ありってのも気になるよね。犯罪者とかじゃないよね。誰かいるよ。
レナ人だわ怪我をしているようね
So we ran into an errand that we have to find the friend of one of the people
助かいや私
whom we cross paths with during the main game. It's one of the crew members. It's
我
one of the
々を
crew
頼る
members.
のも
Yeah. One of the
無
crew
理からの
members.
話だ。
どういう関係なのかしら
それは依頼人から聞けるだろう。
So just looking at the segments. So from 29 minutes, the very next fight is actually about 20 minutes after. So that's a lot of walking segments. Visiting Sisloden, a lot of talk in Vicint. Now we're visiting all the way back to Ulzebek. So this is the very first city that we actually encounter in the main game. The very first city. This is the first, actually the revolution. The first revolution against the first Lord Balsef began. And yeah, so we're now talking about Balsef now. So Balsef is not that difficult of a speed run. Speed run
また
fights.
悩んでるわね
英雄
But
頼る
it's more, I think, the challenge here is actually
人たち
to
それを当たり
to
前の
fasten
よう
up
に引き受
the
ける人た
damage.
ちこれ
The
で
faster defeating
イ
them.
グーリアコーチは相変わらず
So yeah,
ズ
it's
ーグル
not
し
that
か
hard
住ん
for
でないんだ
Baus. For a
無理
Baus.
して住みたくなる場所じゃないわね申し訳
So
ない
again, we run into another errand. We need to gather a lot of materials. So this is slowly turning into an atelier game. So this is slowly turning into an atelier game. More side quests, more pickups, gather materials. So this is slowly turning into an atelier game. And for those who are not aware, I also
カラ
run
ブリアの
atelier
気候も
games.
穏やかになりつつあると聞いていましたがこれは
あくまで以前と比べればということだな。
But don't worry, we're not we're not doing a lot of crafting here.
いえ
Except
そう
for
い
the
う話で
equipment,
もな
of
くてで
course.
すね
For the
この国で
equipment.
も気軽に水ピピ切る日が来るといいね。
So yeah, this place also is also the venue for the first time. Not really first time, because the first time camping is all the way on the tunnels before getting to Ulzebek. This is the venue where we actually witnessed the first costume change of Shion. That particular costume, yeah, that particular costume. So that was the venue. Inside the particular ruins of this game.
お戻ったのか
ああ毒は
So we speak to the dog. This is one of Alphen's closest allies, closest I think friends. I would consider them
モ
as
スガルはレナ人
not
を
just
収容
friends,
する場所
actually
にな
their
ったから
family. Alphen's family in the main game, closest family in the
よく
game.
我慢してるね。 そのレナ人たち。
So this is one of the mandatory cutscenes in the game. So we have seen this over and over again for the first 39 minutes of this run. Errands there, errands here, errands another time, errands this time. This cutscene essentially reminds Alphen, oh, you have been asking me for a lot of favors. Why not be independent? That's basically what this cutscene says. You have to be, just stop being too dependent on me because I've got a lot of things to do, not just serving one town. And we're going back to Nies. We're investigating the status of the gravity of the crisis with Nazamil.
人はいるのに話し声もない。
We go back to the inn. For some reason, one of the weird things that happened in this game is we can actually teleport all the way to the inn, but we have to walk all the way.
探しましょう。
It's a minor detail, but it's quite significant because you have to walk point A to point B to the inn, so it doesn't quite make sense not to teleport. So yeah, we're going to Ganataro. So this is the venue for the fifth Lord Volran. And Volran is, you might be familiar with Zagi from Tales of Vesperia, in which Zagi is in a way a stalker for Yuri in Vesperia. This is also almost the same case as Volran in Arise. So this is one of the mandatory things we need to do. We need to enhance our equipment, replace some characteristics from our current magic emblem. So we want to stack fire damages, and because our highest level for magic emblem is level 3, so you can only attach 2 characteristics. One of them is fire damage plus 15, and unfortunately, and the good thing is we already have one, so we only need to find another fire damage characteristic. That's just another one. That is why we're able to save a couple of seconds there, because we already have fire damage from the beginning, all the way from the first venue, and then we just enhance and replace that particular characteristic and attach to our current equipment. Yeah, attach to current equipment. It's really mandatory simply because you want Alphen to deal a lot of damage at this point.
ヘビナズ
So we now go to the second main dungeon in the game. This is the second mausoleum. This is another set of mazes. And also this particular venue is very nostalgic.
蛇の目のやつら。
Because in the main game, earlier in the first mausoleum, that was in Aiden Lake, but in the main game, there wasn't a significant structure out there. The only significant thing in the main game is actually one of the side quest fights, which is the double Armatil. And by the way, as you have seen in the
世に戻
splits,
れるのかしら
we will fight another set of Armatil later on. So, yeah.
ここにもズーグルがいるのですね
So that structure grew after the main game. This venue, this might remind you of one of the fishing grounds, and also one of the annoying boss fights, which is another copy of the Ooze Hive, but this time you have the way bigger version of the Ooze Hive.
やっぱり
So
みんな仮面かぶってる。
that is that venue,
私たちの反応だ
I'm not sure what name of the cavern. I think it's Limestone Caverns.
気味悪いな。
You can correct me.
早く行こうぜ。
Yeah, I think it's Limestone Caverns. So that was the venue in the main game. Apparently in the DLC, that Limestone Cavern grew into a whole new structure. So the very next fight is another Keyami Ooze. We use another set of happy bottles. We also use some herbs because we obtained herbs during the mandatory cutscenes, if I'm not mistaken. So we fight another set of Keyami Ooze, and we stagger it so that we can deal a lot of down damage, stacked with buff, stacked with everything. So look at that damage. By the way, the Keyami Ooze is level 99. So if it touches one of your party members, given that we have the Reckless Abandon, one hit from it is essentially death. Unless you have KO prevention, that's essentially death. So in the skill panel, we unlock a lot of skills again. Down damage, Flaming Edge Burst, stun damage, Flaming Edge Burst, increase max AG or action gauge, if I'm not mistaken, because we want Alphen to perform a lot of actions. That's basically what in one sitting we want Alphen to perform a lot of actions. More incineration waves. That's it.
ここは泳いで渡れそうだ。
ずぶ濡れは嫌だけど。
And yeah, because of those skill panels, because we've unlocked a lot in the skill panel of Alphen, you have seen earlier that one hit from Incineration Wave, combined with a lot of buffs, combined with increased near-death attack, down damage, and so on and so forth. That level 99 Keyami Ooze, which has about 300 health, depleted all the way to a single digit. So that's how powerful Alphen is, how overpowered Alphen is. So this is more search for Nazamil all over again, so yeah.
私たちが来るのが分かっていたの。
憶測を巡らせるより
So it's really OP actually. Alphen is so OP in this
本
game,
人を探して訪ねる
especially
方
if you unlock the Incineration Wave.
ね
By the
え、
way,
さっきの仮面の話、
compared to speedruns of the main game,
いくらなんでもうちは
Alphen is so useful in the DLC
ここにいる人たち
compared to the
誰も
main
私
game
たちを邪魔しようと
speedruns.
しないわね。
Because in the main game, there will be a part
平和だなん
where
だって言ったって
you can actually
無理
use
で無理やりだぜ。
flaming strikes for Alphen. And that is essentially after Almidrea. After Almidrea and
少
Mesmal,
しばかり変わった
the
役
Fourth
目が
Lord fight, that is essentially the part where Alphen loses its flaming powers.
ナザミ
You
ル、
can't use any flaming strikes.
あの部屋は
That is the venue also where Rinwell shines as a mage. You can use Rinwell for offense.
部屋に。
だけど、なんで
So
今
what
になって
what we're seeing right now is, oh, we encounter Nazamil's home.
ナザミルはずっと
Of
大
course,
事件
because
だよね
Nazamil has a bedroom, particular bedroom, so this is her home.
きっかけになったのか。
And we're approaching now the very first Nazamil
いいぞ
fight.
ナザミルを止めないと。
So this is the first time we encounter Nazamil as an antagonist in this DLC. It's a main character, yes, but it's an antagonist too, considering she becomes a boss fight. Who would have
ド
thought?
レッサーをかぶれば同じになれる。好きになってくれる。また喜ぶ。
So the main strategy in this fight, well, is the usual thing, but we really have to time the heals. We really need to time when to use the break boost, because we want to sneak in 2 incineration waves while Nazamil is down. That is essentially what we want to do. And if we don't time it well, just like this one, not timing it well is actually risking for Alphen to die in Nazamil's melee attack. And Nazamil's melee attack is quite quick in this fight. It's quite quick actually. So this is one example of a well-timed attack and heal. So right before you attack Incineration Wave, you want to initiate heals right away so that you can sneak second powerful Incineration Waves. Sneak 2 powerful Incineration Waves. And then you continue buffing with Rinwell. That's your best bet. That's your best bet in this fight. In this phase, in the second phase of this fight, 50% below, Nazamil will use now the melt. The name of the attack is Lucrops Meld. There are a lot of weird spellings in this in Nazamil's parts. Meld. So you can't actually attack Nazamil with a significant damage. Your best offense is simply break boost attacks, and the Japanese speedrunner Eku actually tried using Rinwell via Divine Saber. And by the way, this is a really good fight because it's possible. The worst case scenario in this game is if after Nazamil commences that Lukov smell, she will recharge, and it's very possible that she will use it right after another Lukov smell or meld. That's literally the worst case scenario because you can only that will further delay your progress within the fight. It's a consumption of about 15 to 20 seconds. And by the way, 2010 is really good for this fight. It's really good, especially if you have seen Nazamil just staying on the ground throughout the second phase. After the Lukop smell, of course. After the Lukop smell, if Nazamil stays on the ground, that's a really good fight. That's a really good fight. If it uses another Lukop smell, that's another 15 to 20 seconds wasted. Because you can't attack Nazamil significantly. And yes, you have seen it earlier, it's a scripted cutscene. You can't avoid it. If you're very lucky enough, especially with the crits, you can actually kill Nazamil without not really kill Nazamil, but you can actually skip that cutscene if you're very lucky with the crits. That is the only way you can actually skip that cutscene. But the problem with this game's crits is that critical hits doesn't come often. So it's really difficult. You need a lot of grinding if you want to really upgrade. So by this time, we know now Nazamil escaped, investigated the panel where she was able to escape, but it's not too safe apparently because it's her realm. So you search for another way to pursue Nazamil, and that's it. And that leads us to the very beginning of the DLC. Who would have thought? So, who would have thought, right? So we're pursuing now Nazamil via the first panel.
仮面連中はなるべく刺激しない方がいいよな。
いきなり追いかけてきたら怖いもんね。
よっせ。
By the way, you might have noticed by now, in the Venoflage fight, after the Venoflage fight, that is when we consume a Shortcake.
あったあったあれだ
That is...
向こうで何を
And
待
by
ち構えて
this
いるか
time, as we approach the final dungeon, the Keystone, we still have the effects of the cooking. So that's how long it is. That's how long it is.
ここが数巻
全ての下病を司るいわばヘルガイムキルの技術の結晶か
カルベイセルニズの人々のように
So the structures is quite identified with Rena, the final dungeon in the main game. So we're transporting back to the 8th Lake simply because we want to consume Shortcake throughout the dungeon because there may be a possibility where we're not able to we will not be able to utilize Shortcake in the final fight, especially with a lot of walking segments in the Keystone. And yes, I'm not kidding, there are a lot of walking segments in the Keystone. There are a lot of stairs everywhere, stairs another time, doors, stairs another time. That's essentially what is happening in this dungeon. So as we're seeing right now, so more walking, and then we
ベイセ
climb
ルの練習の
stairs.
仕業か
いやここに元から救っていると見るべきだ
倒していくしかないってこ
Or
とで
rather,
この感じ
what should I
剣
call
豪や
it?
レナの
Ramps.
力を思い出すわね
実際ここだってレナの地下
Then
に
we climb down because apparently there is an obstruction.
脳が言いくるめ
So
と
and then we climb up again. So stairs, stairs, stairs,
他
more
の仮面連
stairs.
中に紛れてたりしねえよ
Who
な
would have
彼女の
thought?
仮面は見た
Another
目
set
の
of
役割の
stairs.
違うとなればその辺にということはないだろうな
Stairs, 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 more stairs.
このどこかに
So
皆
you
様
might
が
have
いるのね
you might have understood by now why we teleported back as soon as we have the fast travel point, because it's possible that the cooking effects will wear out as soon as we reach the final fight. So this is the fire chamber. Essentially, you encounter a lot of fire foes here. By the way, this dungeon actually features almost all of the types that we encounter in the main game. So we have fire, water, earth, wind, light, dark.
これって
ナザミルの絵だ
I think there's also even the physical thing, the physical
仮面をかぶる前にあ
element.
の子があったのか
Yeah, in Tales games you have the physical element which is marked by gray. So, yeah. So if you actually defeat all of the
あそこにいるのはナザミル
all of the rooms in this dungeon, you actually
何
have
か変だ
access to a lot of really good equipments. But in the speedruns, we don't need them actually. They're just more than enough, in all honesty. So the first fight in this game, in this dungeon is essentially, another set of doppelganger Nazamil Nethers. We will encounter 3 of them throughout the dungeon, of course. And just like that, Nazamil clones are so quick, especially in their melee attack. They're so quick that Alphen will die in one hit if you're not aware of the moves that Nazamil commits. That is why, in a way, you have to be careful. And actually, this is one of the dilemma fights in this DLC because it's not that easy to discern which are you going to kill first. Do you want to kill first the Nazamil copycat or the minion? But the good news is, if you're able to down a Nazamil clone, you can deal significant damage. Really significant damage. Almost half of the health bar. And there's no need to trigger the second phase, so that's really good. It's just that bad possibly because you really have it's so really bad that you can die easily to a single hit from even the minions. Yeah, so yeah. So 108 about 110 is a bad fight actually. It's just below average. It's not a good fight in all honesty. So it's not that great. And also we lost time here because we transported back all the way to Aidan Lake. So we triggered 2 loading screens. So that is one of the reasons why we lost time here. Apart from below a below average fight. So the very next fight is your Ooze Hive. This is one of the difficult fights in the main game because you only have 3 party members during this fight. In the main game, I'm talking about the main game. But for the DLC, this is pretty much of a joke fight. It's just a challenge if you can actually defeat it within 30 to 40 seconds. 30 to 40 seconds is actually a good fight in this boss. Unfortunately, I think by the time Alphen hit the incineration wave, the berserk phase also occurred, so that was quite unfortunate. We did not get the fight we wanted. So I think this is one of the reasons why this fight took longer than I expected. I think I lost by a split second, I think. I would highly think I lost by a split second. This would have been a way better fight if I was able to hit it on time. But still, we saved a couple of times. Well, simply because I think yeah, 58, about 1 minute is just really below average. It's just below average. If we're able to hit it on time, that would have been like maybe really below 50 seconds. So yeah. We save a couple of time here. And another set of walking segments, but this time we're doing the water room. And yeah, one of the weird things in this game, in this dungeon, is actually we are in the fire chamber earlier. We were in the fire chamber, but the minions are weak to fire. The minions are weak to fire. And Nazamil is too prone to fire. Given the significant damage that we dealt earlier. It's that you can deplete more than half of Nazamil's health after downing in one go. So it's just that bad. And it's just weird. By the way, this very next fight is something we really need to be very careful. Because this is very crucial for the next fight. The very next fight that we're about to do. So one of the dilemmas again. Which are you going to defeat first? the minion or the
では一席設けてもらう
or the Nazamil Clone. But the good thing is we're able to hit both Nazamil and the minion. So it's pretty much the clone which is the main problem now, especially with how quick the clone is. By the way, you might have observed by now, every progress with the dungeon, you have a different set of arts for the Nazamil clone. Earlier we saw, I think, the fire bomb. This time we're actually seeing the landmine. Yeah, the landmine. So yeah, I think we lost some time here simply because yeah, 45 seconds is, I think, maybe average, maybe even good. But considering we're fighting it safe, we're fighting it safe because we don't want Alphen to die. I'll mention in the very next fight, actually. I'll mention the very next fight. So the main theme in this dungeon is actually you find keys to progress through the main door. Find keys to progress through the main door. And each of the keys are actually guarded by Nazamil. The Nazamil clones. So yeah, that's it. It's essentially guarded by Nazamil clones.
何と問われてもな、シオンを見習って少し落ち着きたまえ。
私はどうより経験が多いから。ジルファと装甲兵に追いかけられて崖から飛び降りたこともあるわ。
え、何それ、どういう状況？
寒い。早く上がらないか。
そういえば仮面を
So, the very next boss fight, the very next
どう
mandatory
して
fight,
数巻に行ったんだろう。
さて
two
ね、
Armatils.
壁にあらかじめ行動が
By the way, this is very crucial. Just look at what we're about to do. So the very first thing we need to do is commence all heals, commence all buffs. And it's very coincidental that Alphen suddenly learned Explosive Ring. So it's quite a bad thing because I expected that the Incineration Wave will go through. So it did not deal the expected damage I wanted. So compared when I did with the Incineration Wave. But it's still a quick fight. It's still a quick fight because we were able to deal significant damage, especially with the down. So this is where you conserve Alphen's stun or break boost. Unfortunately, it was 30 seconds because I did not expect that Alphen will learn Explosive Ring. And the heal did not come through on time. But it's still a quick fight. The worst case scenario in that fight was if we did not have a break boost, that would have gone all the way to a 2-minute fight because we don't have a significant way to deal damage to these two Armatil. Because Armatils don't have weakness, they're quite beefy in terms of defense, I think. So it's really that bad if you don't have Alphen's break boost that we needed to conserve during the second Nazamil Clone fight. Needed to conserve during the second Nazamil Clone fight. So that's why it's really crucial that you conserve it. Yeah, break boosts are basically stuns in this game. Stuns provided that you meet the conditions. So for example, Alphen's break boost can actually stun everyone. It can actually stun everyone. Kisara can stun charging foes. Dual Limb, fast foes. Shion for the flying foes. Law for armored foes. Rinwell for casting foes. So this is the final Nazamil Clone fight. This time, if you have seen a golem and a spider separately, this time we see both of them. So again, the dilemma goes on again. Do you kill the minion first or do you kill the Nazamil Clone? But it's much better, I think, to kill the minions first before anything.
油断は禁物よ。これで
By the way, the purpose of the delay is we want to deal significant damage to the golem. Or even Nazamil to some extent. The purpose of the delay. So, this time we have to be careful. Yeah, we're able to trigger the second phase for the golem. And we're able to kill the minions. So, this time it's all down to the clone. So, it's still a quick fight nonetheless. It's about a minute long for each of the fights in the keystone. Okay, so that was a good fight. So 58, about 1 minute, that's still a good fight. That's still a good fight. It's not extremely well, but it's fine. It's fine. We did, it's quite a clean fight. So we're done with all of the clones. We're done with all of the clones. So what remains now are the last fights. Or rather, one full fight. So we teleport back all the way to the top. Because apparently that is the only teleporter we have for this dungeon. So that is the reason why we actually go all the way. So we do one last final full heal. Final skill panel. We want to unlock critical damages. And then one last buff for Alphen. Yeah. One last buff for Alphen. By the way, as you might have noticed by now, the cooking is slowly decreasing all the way to maybe it's about 20% and below. And with all of this walking, if we did the cooking in Aiden Lake first before going to the Keystone, first time going to the Keystone, the cooking effects might have worn out by now. So this is one of the reasons why we actually do cooking early on. We do cooking after getting the fast travel point in the Keystone. So, the final fight, the second true Nazamil fight. So, what happens in this fight is actually the true Nazamil fight has arts, very arts. And what Nazamil tends to do here is that she will showcase all of the Lord's arts. So we have 5 lords in Tales of Arise, right? That we fought during the main game. In this very first instance, she will use Volran's mystic art. She will use Volran's mystic, not really mystic art, but one of Volran's arts. Mainly the ice attacks. Next, she will use Balfcep's arts. She will use Balsep's
金を
arts.
失ったのは俺だった今度ナザミルの番だエンジンこいつで魔王エニタマジンテン俺の進行
At this point, she's using Ganabelt's defense arts. Unfortunately, I miscalculated my damage for Infernal Torrent. That is why she was able to trigger Ganabelt's arts. It's my slight miscalculation that did out there. So the second phase actually, well, she still uses the same attacks as before, showcasing more Lord's arts. But this time, the Mystic art is Alma. The one that we have seen earlier in the first fight. The first two Nazamil fight. But this time, you can actually dodge it. You can actually dodge it. This is not a scripted fight. So the strategy here is while Nazamil is setting up, and at the same time while Nazamil is setting up her Mystic art, we take advantage of the opening. We deal as many damage as much as possible. We deal as much damage as possible. So what she's showcasing now is Dohalim's charge art.
僕の手を隠したのかよさっきよりも厄介になりやがった目を覚ませ
So we're able to defeat the first phase of the Nazamil fight. The second phase is when Nazamil is consumed and became a monster, which is a level 92 Oppressor. So yeah, we start at level 65, and now we're about level 73 fighting a level 92 monster. So that is what we're doing right now. Now, this boss fight. This boss fight is really difficult. Even for a speed run. Simply because
から補っているらしい
just looking at face value, this monster is so big that it has a really wide hitbox. So any melee attack could actually decimate Alphen in no time. That's how bad this boss fight can be. It can decimate Alphen in no time, especially with the reckless abandon. And also the reaction time of this boss is like in Tekken. It has a really good reaction time. It has a really good reaction time. So the good news is we're dealing significant damage. It's about 100k. That's good. But you can only deal it when the boss is downed. So yeah, one of the difficult things about this boss as well is in terms of stats, it has a really good stats. Defense, HP is definitely beefy. It's definitely beefy. So you have seen earlier, it's about 850,000. If you play this in the highest difficulty, this is about 2 million. 2 million. Oh wow. You don't see that, you can't see this in a lot of Let's Plays. By the way, especially if you're playing in the highest difficulty. By the way, I did not time Kisara's break loose correctly, so Alphen died. And by the way, in this phase, the boss becomes way more aggressive. It becomes way faster as well, actually. It becomes way faster. So this is one of the instances we actually consume gold gels, because this fight can really empty your cure points, CP. This cure points are essentially your ability, are essentially the ability to heal and to support the whole party. So this is one of the mechanics in this game. I was having a difficult time here because I think I lost my momentum after Alphen dying to a slightly delayed timing of Kisara's break boost, which led me in which I was not able to down Nazamil during this phase. So I really had a bad timing, bad second phase. The first phase is quite good, but the second phase was really that bad. Especially if Nazamil doesn't want to suddenly charge. Not that without Alphen's break boost. It's that bad. It's that bad. And yeah, at this point we're dealing significant low damages. So
Significant but low, no?
it's simply because it's not that, because we don't have the down. We don't have the down. If the enemy is down, it's way more significant. So we're taking advantage while the boss is down. And again, the same strat as the first phase. While the enemy is setting up Mystic Arts, we take advantage of we will take advantage of this moment to deal significant damage. But of course, because the boss is setting up Mystic Arts, it's in the Berserk phase. So that simply means you deal less damage. And actually, if a critical hit suddenly rises in this fight, it's a life-saving moment actually. It's a life-saving moment if we actually see a critical hit. Unfortunately, I think because of we only ate a Shortcake instead of a newly formed route, which is eating New Era Nochi. We did not deal significantly enough damage. And yeah, that Mystic Art, Alma. Yeah, these names are so random. Alma. So yeah, if you're not able to defeat it on time, and the boss triggers its Mystic Art, that basically means you consume another set of 30 seconds. About 30 seconds. Because that Mystic Art could take a while, and of course, to damage it all over again. So, we're able to defeat it, and that's time. So, this is the world's first sub 75 loadless RTA time, because it is timed 1:14:55. The RTA is 1 hour 22 and 48 seconds, so that's quite good as well, especially if we compare to the very first run of Vesprax. The only bad thing that transpired here is that I died a lot of times in the final Nazamil phase, which cost me about 1 minute and 20 seconds. It's that bad. It's that bad. If I did not die a lot of times there, maybe I would have saved a lot of time. But yeah, this is one of the fights that really is this particular fight is something you really need to practice if you're not is one of the things I really practice the most because this is essentially the longest fight, and actually it's I would say it's the second most difficult fight. The first most difficult fight is actually the second Nazamil Clone because you really have to conserve. And whatever happens in that fight is directly connected to the very next fight. It's really connected to the very next fight. This particular final sequence, it's not that hard, but you have to do a lot of things. Especially, this fight can transpire 8 to 10 minutes, depending on how lucky you are in this fight. So, usual JRPG tropes, you actually shout to the main, to the antagonist, because the antagonist has some amnesia, some identity crisis. That's essentially what happened in this fight. So that's it. So this is Tales of Arise Beyond the Dawn with bonus full run. If you want an abridged version of this, the boss rush run, quote unquote boss rush run, is available. So if you want to select this for marathon runs. By the way, because of the new strats and because of the new things that I have mentioned, this can be run in about 1 hour and 25, 1 hour 26, 1 hour 27. It's a really short actually. The only biggest con in this run is, if I were to say something about the biggest con, is essentially a lot of walking segments. It's essentially a lot of walking segments. If you remove almost all walking segments, unnecessary walking segments, this can be run in less than an hour. In all honesty. And as you have seen in the boss rush run, it's almost half of this full run. Almost half of this full run. So yeah. So that's essentially what we do. So on that note, mula sa Bayang Pilipino, I am John, out. Enjoy the ending sequence.